All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Audit Committee. I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. We're going to go a little bit out of order, and we have a couple of action items that, in the interest of time and a quorum, we're going to take our votes on first. So if we could jump to those, Mike, first.
Sure. The first one item we want to do is the Independent Accountants Review Report. Mike Fritz and Deloitte, if you can come up, please. Deloitte will discuss the MTA interim consolidated financial statements and draft that were prepared for the second quarter of 2017. The plan is for these statements to be issued in final form after committee review and approval. Michael?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Audit Committee. I'm here first to talk about the second quarter financial statement review that we did. These financial statements are consistent with what has been given to you by management in the past. They would have been shared with you in the Finance Committee. As a part of our review that we do on a quarterly basis, we are looking to make sure these financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and also that the principles are being consistently applied. These financial statements are without any adjustment as a result of our review, so there should be no differences in what was previously presented to you, and our review report would be a clean opinion as it relates to the financial statements being in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
All right, are there any questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion? Second, all in favor? Any opposed, abstaining? Very good.
Good. And the next item deals with the appointment of our external auditors for the audit year of 2017. The committee will review the appointment of the independent auditor for MTA and its agencies. As part of this process, the committee will be provided with the latest report of the firm's most recent inspection conducted by the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. Mayo?
As a part of our being a registered accounting firm and being able to issue audit reports on publicly held companies, we are subject to the inspection by the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. That report you have relates only to audits that we do of public issuers. However, we do take that report very seriously. We had 55 engagements in the 2015 audit year that were reviewed by the PCOB. They had comments that related to those reports. However, none of those comments related to us having to restate any of the opinions, but it did talk about changes that we would need to do in our controls and processes. Also, we do subject our audits, like the audit of the MTA, to an internal inspection, and you're also subject to having our peer reviewer review that report. Neither of those two inspections occurred of the MTA this past year. As a partner in the firm, I am subject to review once every 4 years in terms of my specific audit being done of one of the audits I perform, and there's not been any audit of mine reviewed in the past as well. But we do it's all a part of our overall quality control process, and I think you would find the results of the PCOB report to be very consistent of the other Big Four firms.
Very good. Any questions? Hearing none. Motion. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Very good. Thank you.
Mike, we'll defer your approach plan to later in the meeting because no votes needed for that. So if you just hold tight a second. The next item we'd like to do is with Lamont Kirsch to review the Audit Committee Charter. Lamont will explain the proposed non-substantive changes that we've made to the Audit Committee Charter to provide more consistency and update some of the titles given the new organizational structure in the Chairman's office. Lamont?
Well, thank you, Mike. That's pretty much everything I had to say. So again, as you already know, each of the committees is required to do this. This is an annual requirement.
Are we actually voting on this? We didn't.
This is an information item only.
Okay.
The Governance Committee, that's correct.
But your committee has to vote on it. Your committee has to accept it.
So we have vote required in this, but we did not do that on our committee.
There is no vote required. The committees provide an opportunity for review and for comment. It's the purview of the chairman and the Governance Committee in terms of making changes to the charter itself.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lamont. The next item is the Annual Audit Committee Activity Report. This report covers the activities of the Audit Committee during the last 12 months ending July 31st, 2017. It's been prepared in the same format as past reports, and it goes over the year in review, basically, of what the committee did, such as appointing the external auditors, hearing from Lamont on compliance issues, and getting an update from technology on such matters as security. Okay.
And we are voting to accept this report?
Yes,
That's
it's
what we
been
have on here?
distributed, yes.
Okay. Any questions on it? Hearing none. Motion, please? All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Very good.
And our last item requiring a vote is the review of the MTA Inspector General's office. Deloitte will brief the committee on the results of their review of the MTA's office operations and expenses based upon agreed-upon procedures that was presented to the committee earlier in the year. So, Michael?
You should have in front of you a copy of our final draft report of the agreed-upon procedures of this Inspector General's department. It's very consistent in the types of procedures we've performed in the past. We are looking at actual transactions. We're looking to make sure that individuals that might have been terminated do in fact, they've been terminated from the access to the various systems and things of that nature. We're looking at their payroll. We're looking at expenditure reports. We are looking at other types of fixed asset additions that they have had, whether or not they're reporting their disposals properly. Very consistent with what you would see if we were doing actual audit procedures in that group, but we're not issuing a separate financial statement on that report. There was only one minor exception, and that was an item that was actually accrued for in an improper period, but it actually had been accrued previously, and then when the journal entry was reversed, it was reversed improperly, but it was for a very minor amount, but that's what that related to.
Questions? All right, hearing none, motion? All in favor? All right, opposed, abstentions, none. And then if we could quickly just jump to the approval of the minutes. The minutes of the last committee book of the last meeting are in the committee book. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve? Oh, the minutes are approved. All right, now we've just jumped all over. Okay,
The work plan.
Perfect, Mike. Any changes to the work plan?
The work plan remains consistent. Our next meeting is in January, where we discuss the MTA risk management update and internal control guidelines in compliance with requirements of the state's Internal Control Act. Also, we'll have a discussion about security of sensitive data and DDCR performance measures. Michael Gardner will be here to discuss that. And then I'll also and I'll give an update on the activities of the Internal Audit Department for 2017 and a proposed 2018 plan.
Included an examination of the technology issues? Did we have we had a conversation about
Yes.
that? So that will be incorporated into that?
In January.
Thank you.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, Michael, back to Deloitte to talk about the approach plan for the 2017 audit, and you have your team here.
Okay. I do have my team here, the key members of the audit team. To my immediate right is Chris Hinkman. He will be performing the audits of the two railroad companies as well as the bus company. Leah McGuire is a managing director in our Enterprise Risk Services Group. She performs the computer control work as it relates to the BSC and the other technology areas of the audit. To her right is Jill Strohmeyer. Jill is, as I'd mentioned to you, I think at the last meeting, a new managing director in our firm, and she will be signing a lot of the other reports, MTA headquarters and the other entities. She's been on this engagement for a number of years, has a great familiarity with your team. And then to her right is Darshan Patel, who is one of our senior managers and works specifically in the Uniform Grant Guidance Audit. So all these individuals were on the engagement last year. They are very familiar with your organization. They're very familiar with your controls and your people. The audit this year will be somewhat consistent with the last year in that we only have one significant risk, and that relates to management override of controls. That is something that we are required under generally accepted auditing standards to consider as a specific risk. And that's only because manual journal entries could be made at an entity that could potentially change the results of an operation. And that's something as a professional standard we're required to do. We have never had a concern over that, but we are required to test it, and we will test it again in the current year. In addition to that, the specific areas of focus that we will look at is the adoption of any new accounting principles. As you know, a couple years ago, the pension standard was a new standard. In the current year, there is a other post-employment benefits standard that will require you to record an obligation on your financial statements relating to the unfunded portion of your health and welfare plans. We will look at capital assets, including the construction work in process. If you recall last year, one of the restatements related to the timing of when things were moved from construction and work in process into an asset that should have been amortized, and we will be looking at that again to make sure that there are no concerns from that perspective. We will look at pension and the other post-employment benefits as it relates to actuaries. You've had a change in actuary as it relates to your some of your general obligations that you have, your general liabilities, but we will be making sure that the investment return on the pension plans is appropriate. We'll make sure that the amount of covered payroll that's included in that calculation is appropriate so that the large amount that's recorded as that pension obligation is in fact reflective of what should be reflected for the organization. In terms of fair revenues, with the fact that you've moved to open toll types of processes, that the toll booths are not there anymore, so we will be modifying our procedures as it relates to how those fares are captured. We'll be looking at the estimates as it relates to the unpaid amounts that go through that process, and we'll be looking at that in specific. And then likewise, any grants and appropriations and major tax revenues that you have will be subjected to focus in our audit as well. In terms of the single audit, very consistent in terms of the types of things that we'll be looking at as it relates to the federal programs and grant procedures that you're subject to. The timing of the audit, I expect to be back on schedule with where you've been in the past, and that we'll be ready for your April meeting to prepare or to have the financial statements for your review. We have started our interim procedures, and I know of nothing as to why we won't be able to meet that time frame. I'm not aware of any issues that your financial management's dealing with that would cause a delay from that perspective. Be glad to answer any questions you have on that on the scope of the audit.
Well, the brevity of this meeting aside, please don't take that as a sign that we don't appreciate the team that you've assembled and the audit plan that you've prepared. It's a good plan. You guys have done good work in the past, and we're looking forward to being the beneficiary of that work this next period as well. Just brief, because sometimes we have to move time to the CPOC ledger side of the ledger for their time, but we really do appreciate the plan, and it is a good one.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, you and I do talk, when there's an opportunity for that to occur, when we believe it needs to happen, and I want all members of the audit committee to know that if there's ever a time when I feel that I do need to have access to any of you, I do believe I can have that occur, and it will occur from our perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I do have one last report, and that's a very small one that relates to the scope of the pension plan audits. We are in the process right now of auditing the pension plans as it relates to December of last year. Likewise, the scope of that, very consistent in terms of the procedures. There will be focus on the actuarial calculations. There will be focus on the investments, because obviously the investments make up a major portion of the assets of those plans. And likewise, we do look at management override of controls, journal entries that it might impact those financial statements. But again, we've not really noticed anything different, and I would expect that those reports will be available to you at the January meeting.
If there's no any other questions we need to address, then we need a motion for the audit committee to adjourn. Second. Very good. The audit committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.